Good afternoon, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. And you do not want to miss today's show at all. We've got Mr. Jerry Leisure. Jerry is the CEO and co-founder of Officium Labs. And everybody these days is interested in the customer experience. And that is what Jerry is an expert at. He is a thought leader. We are very excited to have Jerry on the show today to tell us about not only what's happening at Officium Labs, but also to tell us about what's happening in the world as a thought leader with regard to customer experiences for companies. So Jerry, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Andy. It's always great to talk to like-minded individuals that are really passionate about, the things we do in CX, but also startups and entrepreneurship.
So Jerry, you've got a very long career in helping companies and absolutely, running a very successful company at Officium. And what we want to talk about to start with, for those people that want to learn about customer experience in this day and age through COVID, tell us a little bit about Officium and how it helps customers and what your grand design of the entire company is.
No, I think that's a great question. Thanks, Andy. I think in general, when my co-founder Scott and I were thinking about the future of CX, the future of service, we thought and imagined a world, and this was pre-COVID, but we thought and imagined about a world, and in that world, there was a network of connections. And part of those network of connections were workers, and part of them were companies or clients that needed workers, especially in the customer experience area. And so what we wanted to do with Officium was to bring the workers and the clients together, and not only in a meaningful way to drive best-in-class customer experience or customer satisfaction, but in a flexible way where they could have it in more on-demand, more pay-as-you-go. And so we started off a couple of years ago with an idea for people and a $150,000 loan. And almost a couple of years later, we have 10 brands or 10 clients. We have 33 people, and we've been able just to do an immense amount of customer service and value through our 360 service stack framework with clients. And so it's just been really fun to be able to make an impact and to be part of the future of where service is going pre-COVID. And then you go post-COVID, and it just completely accelerates everything that we were dreaming about. And it makes it front and center for every company, not just our company, but all companies.
That's awesome. And I know that your company has 4 technology platforms that are really transformational, and we'll get into that momentarily. But for right now, let's talk about the type of client that contacts you at Officium and what's their chief challenge or problem that you're able to fix for them.
I think there's 3 main types of clients. The first one is your startup founder who knows customer service is important, but doesn't know exactly what to do. And so they either A, go give it to a programmer and say, go answer Gmail. And then by the time you get to Series C, it's a bit of a cluster. Or B, they use somebody like Officium, where we have a turnkey customer solution, where we provide the CRM, AI, bots, analytics, and all the resources, middle management and frontline folks to operate and plug into the services organization leader inside of a startup. So that's kind of that first customer. They just come and help us solve this. I think the second customer you're looking at is someone that is really focused on their frontline customer service. And they're like, hey, I just had a spike in volume. I just grew much faster than I expected. I need people now, and I need them fast, and I need it to be flexible because I'm not sure what the volatility of this volume is going to be. And they tend to use our TalentPlace solution, where that's kind of pay-as-you-go customer service. Some people like to call it the Uber of customer service. We don't necessarily call it that, but it's that same type of concept, right? And then you have the third client, which sometimes is more of the middle kind of SMB to enterprise, where they're like, hey, we've got a decent customer service, but how do we tie our customer service to ROI or revenue impact? And with our 360 service stack and our data analytics, we've worked with these large enterprise to help them understand not only how can they tie customer service to revenue, but how do they run a well-oiled operational machine so they're not spending money in the wrong areas. So I think those are the three key types of customers that often engage us. We have some fringe customers that have different things that they need, but for the most part, we find those are three that are critical.
So these customers and people that are going to reach out to you after watching this show, they're selling something to someone.
That's right.
Is there a standard or a general idea of what they're selling? Are they selling to consumers? Are they selling to other businesses? Where does your technology platform shine?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So we started off as a B2C platform where we worked mostly in the gaming space. Most of the original kind of 5 or 6 folks in the companies were from gaming. As COVID hit, we saw 2 other industries that really spiked in growth. One was the logistics and delivery area. So you probably remember I came from Postmates. I was the VP of customer service and courier operations over there. So I have a bit of a background in that. So we saw a huge growth in that area. And then also telehealth. So telehealth ended up to be, so delivery and logistics is still B2C, but telehealth is more B2B, because what you're doing is you're providing support for these nurses and these doctors that are giving these essential services to these patients. And so as we took on telehealth, we started to move into the B2B area with our platform and network.
Excellent. Let's back up just a little bit, pull the lens back where you mentioned that the first group or tranche of people that work with Officium are the startup founders.
Yeah.
Do they typically say, Jerry, we're funded, we have this idea, we want to grow our customer base, but we don't want to handle really the customer experience. We want you to handle everything. Or is it more of a machinated type of an opportunity where Officium comes in and works part of the operation?
I think with startup founders, it usually starts off with, hey, we'd like you to handle everything, but let's have a time schedule or plan where we slowly take it over, from a people standpoint and technology, which is pretty normal, right? In a startup, you want to have as flexible cost, but you want to have good service in the beginning. And as you get revenue or funding, you want to keep some of that IP, some of that knowledge internally. And so that's pretty normal. And so we have a very flexible model that allows them to do that, not only with the technology, but we also let them to convert the people that we hire in the early days. They can convert to FTEs or use inside of their company as they desire as well. So it's really a win-win situation for those startup founders.
And when you have a startup founder that reaches out to you and you begin to engage with them, Jerry, how do you handle things that you're seeing based on your background and extensive experience that you're seeing that, let's say, the founder is doing that perhaps doesn't feel right to you, or maybe he might want to take a different path? Do you offer that type of advice as well?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, we like to have the mantra, people do business with people. So we prefer to build strong relationships. And in those relationships, we'll provide candid feedback. We'll trust and let the founder own their business and understand what's best for their business. But we're always going to be a source of mentorship and coaching in that area, because that's what they hired us for, right? Is to give them coaching and mentorship in CX. And sometimes founders, take it to heart and they make changes. Other times they don't. But we'll always going to be there to provide that feedback for those founders.
So I would imagine part of the success of your business is finding the right people to connect the Officium opportunity, let's say, to the startup founder. So where do you find the customer experience experts to help you provide the service that you're providing to your clients?
It's kind of interesting. So it's a great question. It's actually probably much more simple than you expect. You have hundreds of thousands of CX workers around the globe, and they're all either working for somebody, or unfortunately, as is the case now with COVID, a lot of folks aren't working, right? And so what you have is you have all these talented, capable people, and a lot of them want a more flexible work schedule. They want to work for potentially a bunch of different companies over time and not necessarily be tied to one enterprise, especially with kind of millennial and the Gen Z generation. And so what you find is you have all this capability and you provide them the opportunity. And then we just get droves and droves of really capable, quality people, not only for frontline customer service, middle management, we also have executives placed as well. And so I think it's just a much more simple. We post a job, We go through a vetting process, which includes written and verbal tests. It also includes, we have an empathy test, because we want to make sure that everybody that's serving in our company has that natural empathy skill, or the DNA bit, right? But really, that's the way that you do it. And you just see there's so many capable, talented people across the globe.
That's wonderful. And I love the idea that you add the empathy connection, because in this type of customer service experience, you find sometimes where the person on the other end of the phone, or on the other end of the chat, or on the other end of the internet connection, you don't feel that they're empathizing with you.
That's right.
And I think one of the things that makes your company so successful is when they hire Officium, they get people on the other end that actually have empathy for customers, and that actually shines through to the company who's hired you. So you're a reflection of the company that hires you. Is that the way it works, Jerry?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's different about our company from other companies that are kind of out there is we do the frontline customer service, but we also do middle management and executive. So we have a broader view of like, hey, how are we helping the client end to end be successful? And how are we ensuring all of our resources, or in some cases, if it's not our resources, other resources, ensure that they're bringing their A game each and every day to that customer. And I think that's the most critically important thing that's different.
Yeah, I love that. And, when we think about your company and we think about the number of people that you put together in this amazing platform, one of the first things that comes to mind is you must have built a very powerful CRM program. Tell us a little bit about that. How does that all fit into your tools that you provide?
Yeah, so we built a service stack platform, and inside the platform, we've got capabilities, and CRM is one of those capabilities, is really looking at what are the top echelon or top quadrant capabilities in the CRM quadrant area. And we look at a product on our platform called CRM 10. And it really focuses on those functional capabilities and how we can deliver those in a seamless fashion, either leveraging our own technology or being a UI UX layer on top of other best-in-class technologies like Salesforce or Zendesk or HelpShift or other companies like that. So the first component of that service stack is that CRM capabilities. That second component is really looking at AI and bots and how those can be integrated into your solution using knowledge bases, using natural language processing, translated support, those different components as well. And then the next piece is looking at your workforce management, and we call that work forward. Almost every company out there that listens to this, I could save them 10% on their customer service costs just by delivering a better workforce management solution. And I think that's critical, is managing your workforce and operating is so essential. And then you look at the resources inside of the service stack that we provide that's best in class. And if you couple all of that service stack together, you get to the BI and analytics product that we have called RevUp. And that's the component that really ties that customer satisfaction or that resolution rate to the ROI or LTV metric, whether it's revenue, playtime, whatever your digital outcome metric of KPI success is. And so bringing that all together, that's what our platform does, is it provides the engine of capability or function, right? All those tools that I mentioned with the network of resources, you combine it together and it provides you that end-to-end best-in-class on-demand customer service and customer experience.
See, that's really brilliant, because if we look at the work forward solution that you offer, let's say saving 10%, and then you add the next layer of the AI and the analytics in your RevUp stack, right, that also will increase perhaps revenue or decrease expenses one way or the other, or both ways.
That's right.
This not only pays for itself, but it pays for itself hands over fist, it sounds like. So this is a great way for a company to bring in some outside help to not only get the help, but also increase their revenues.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we have one client where I had an original pitch with them, and I made a bold statement. I said, if you invest $1 million in your customer experience, I'll find you $4 million. And that's what we did. And I think that's critical, is when a company really focuses on their customer, then the amount of money that they make because they retain customers, then they don't have to spend on continuously acquiring customers. They're able to deliver a higher quality brand credibility, and then customers want to stay with them for the long haul. So customer experience isn't now, it's not a transaction. And I think that's the key thing to remember. It's now a lifetime of loyalty. Every time that I'm talking to you, Andy, if I'm selling something and you're buying it, how am I helping you become a lifetime customer for whatever product that I'm selling? And if companies take that perspective, then those are the companies that are going to be the most successful companies that don't lose, according to Forbes, the $85 billion that customer experience companies lost last year in the United States. So are companies going to be focused on that? And if they are, or if they want to be and they don't know how to get there, Officium can help them with that.
See, Jerry, we're talking about some very interesting transformational tools for companies to use. Your CRM 10, the Work Forward, the Rev Up, and the automation program that you offer. But let's step back just a minute, because we will have a number of younger entrepreneurs also watching this show, and young startup visionaries that have an idea, that are going to try and get their feet on the ground and running. So if we pull it back a little bit, Jerry, what kind of sage advice can you give, let's say not someone that's funded and not someone that is going to spend $1 million with you, but someone that's just sort of getting going and they need to understand the importance of this customer experience? What kind of amazing advice can you give them from your experience as the CEO and founder of Officium?
Well, I appreciate the kind notes there, Andy. I'll try to be a little bit more humble than that, because I'm only 2 years old as a startup founder. Although I worked for big enterprises, I'll just give some of the things that I've learned along the way. I think that maybe there's a couple or three here. I think the first one is, when I worked in the enterprise, I would forecast out like 3 years, right? When you're first starting a business, it's impossible to forecast the future like that. So what I would say is, find an idea that you want to experiment on, and then just experiment the heck out of it and see what you learn. Fail fast, but move forward, adapt and iterate. And eventually you'll be able to find the market for that idea and then grow from there. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is, make sure that you have amazing people with you. Like, these are folks that you're going to work with day in and day out. Not only the folks that work with you, but the board members that you might select, or the VCs that you might work with, or the first kind of seed funders that you have. Just make sure they're people you really want to be around, that they share your core values. One of the things that our company does here, is I always keep it in front of me, is we made our core values a couple of years ago. And I just keep them right here in front of me, because it's so easy as a CEO and a founder to get distracted by the new shiny ball. So really make sure you make your decisions based off of those core values, in addition to finding great people. And then I think the third thing is, if you are doing a technology play, make sure you're different. Make sure you're doing something that nobody has done, or make sure you're thinking about it in a way that hasn't been thought of. If you're more of a services founder, I would say try to be sustainable, try to be profitable from the get-go, and really focus on your brand and focus on who you are. I think those are some pieces of feedback that I would give. I don't know if they're sage, but they definitely helped me as I've kind of gone through the phase of, I know what I don't know, and then the I don't know what I don't know thing. And now I'm slowly decreasing that by talking to people like you, talking to other seasoned founders and CEOs.
See, this is very good feedback. And in this day and age, there really aren't any solo entrepreneurs anymore. And I think you hit on that you really need to have a wonderful, strong team around you. How were you able to put together your team? Did that come in place because of your past experience, or did you actually go out and hire people for that?
I think the network that you build over your career. So I was in enterprise for 20 years, right? So along the way, I've met some amazing people, and we had such a meaningful relationship together that when I tapped them on the shoulder and I said, "Hey, I'm doing this cool new thing. Are you interested?" They came over. They trusted me. They trusted in our relationship and what we've done in the past, and they said, "Let's do that." And so for the first 20 or 30 people, it's either been that, or they've tapped some people, right? eventually we're going to have to go out to the market and hire people outside. But what an amazing experience it is to go and find the best of the best in your network or in your network's network and build a company based off of that. It's just been phenomenal.
See, that's super cool. And Jerry, you mentioned that not only does Officium provide, let's say, frontline type workers for your clients, but also, let's say C-level class type people to those companies as well. So when you look at the array of people that you have on the front lines and in your C-level executive crew, is there one thing that stands out that they all have in common with regard to how they approach customer service?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It goes back to that empathy test. They just care. And they show up every day caring. And they don't let whatever happens taint that. They stick to that. Hey, we care. We want to delight our customers. We care. We want to delight. And that's what's synonymous from everyone on the team.
So when you care and delight your customers, Jerry, if I'm one of your customers, who do I get to speak with over at Officium if I have a question or a concern or, want to learn more about, one of your platforms or technology transformation tools? Who do I get to speak with? Do I speak with you or am I speaking with one of your team?
I think generally speaking, I've talked with every client and every customer, especially in the early days, right? As the kind of the engagement grows, we have an expert in automation. Her name is Kirsty. She's really lovely. We have an expert in vendor management. Her name is Kristen. We have an expert in project management named Sean. We've got an expert in marketing, and I could keep naming folks, right? But we just have these experts all around. So more than likely, we'll engage you in wherever you want to be met, right? And that's one of the things that we believe is important, is to meet the customers where they are and help them where they are. And some customers talking to me and thinking about the future of where they want to go is the right conversation. For other customers, talking to a project manager that's helping them transform their operational acumen and expertise is the right person. So it just kind of depends.
Jerry, is there a time, or maybe it's now through your AI opportunity, but do you see a time in customer service where the technology will know, or maybe it already does know, prior to the buyer deciding what they want to buy? In other words, will your technology tell the customer, your customer, when the best moment is to sort of close the deal for a customer? Does it have that type of legs in your AI paradigm?
I think there's two things here, and I feel like maybe sometimes, Andy, you're inside of my head. But we have this new capability. It's called our self-service maturity model, and we're going to be rolling that out in 21. And really the idea here is traditionally we do like assessments for customers to let them know, against our benchmark, how are they doing, what are they doing great in, what are their opportunities to improve in. And it's a very manual process, but we're building an automated kind of AI approach to that to let the customer have it in their hands to know what they're doing great at and where there's opportunities. So there's going to be a huge kind of revolution that's happening in 21 and beyond. That's where customers can be given the information to know where they can improve or where they want to improve, right? So I think that's one component of it. I think the second component that you're asking is more of kind of a B2C, B2B component versus us, what we sell. And I think that, what I will say today is companies that invest in data and big data and tying data together, they're making those decisions today. And they're doing that without their customers knowing, because you have the ability today, and we've done this with our RevUp solution for a couple customers, where you can tie their CRM data to their product data, and you tie it together, and then you can see when a customer is happy or unhappy or saying this thing, they're doing this thing inside of the product. And so if you automatically make changes in the product that fix this, then this sentiment is going to get better and your credibility is going to get better. And so then revenue goes up. So it's happening today. The most futuristic companies are doing it today. In 5 or 10 years, every company. is going to be using big data to do that exact thing that you mentioned.
This may be a little deep into the weeds, but I've always been curious about it. And since I have you on the show, I wanted to ask you about it. So when customer service people are on the phone with a potential customer,
yeah,
are there any AI things going on in the background where they're hearing certain words or phrases that somehow computes and calculates into some type of, let's say, action step that shows up on the customer service agent screen so that they know what to say next? Or is that too futuristic at this point?
Well, I think where you're headed is in the right direction, right, Andy? I think there's some bespoke examples of what you're talking about, but it's not enterprise-wide. Yeah, but what you are starting to see is that customers are doing voice and text analytics, sometimes real time, sometimes after the fact, to really start to understand and predict customer behaviors. And then based off of those behaviors, they're doing proactive engagements with those particular customers to be able to improve the overall sentiment and the experience that they're having. So for example, you may have a customer who is saying certain words on the phone or in an email around the logistics and a delivery, right? And while the agent is providing support, he'll have one screen with the kind of the words, the complaint, the concern, whatever from the customer, and he'll have another screen that looks at all of the product data for that, and then a recommended, say, this could be a solution that you would provide, to that customer, right? And sometimes that solution could just be a phrase, could be a whole written out email, could be compensation, it could be, this particular kind of incentive or whatnot. But you see that companies are starting to do that. And I think that there's always going to be this element of human intuition or human judgment for kind of deep spender customers. But there are, as the AI and the bot solutions get a little bit stronger, you are going to start to see more and more of the low-hanging kind of automation capability handled through bots and AI, especially as you get from where we are today, which is just very basic AI, to conversational AI. I think there's going to be a natural transition there, but there will be a component, in my opinion at least, that there's always going to be human judgment, at least for the next 5 to 15 years, where human judgment is going to still be critical in that conversation.
That's incredible. So it's really moving very, very quickly. But I like the idea of what you said, that still human judgment will still be needed ultimately, because you do hear a lot of people talking about the AI solutions where you're not going to need human judgment anymore. And I think you and I agree that that's always going to be important, especially when it comes to empathy and being on the front line for customers. Is there one company, Jerry, when you think about AI and customer service that people are dealing with on a daily basis and they really don't have any idea how much of the sales cycle is actually automated behind the scenes? Is there a company that's really nailing that?
I think the sales and the support cycle for USAA is phenomenal. So I'll make a call into USAA the first time. USAA then stores my phone number, stores all of my credential information. I log into the website a week later and they say, hey, we noticed that you called last week and you had this particular issue. Is the reason why you're visiting the website related to this issue? Right? I say yes, then they automatically pull up all the pertinent information about that issue and say, hey, here are the commonly asked questions that have come up since you've last logged in. Do these answer your questions? Blah, 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 right? If the answer is no, okay, well, let us get you directly to the right department so you don't have to go through this whole tree of people who I need to be routed to, right? So you have that seamless engagement with, hey, I have an issue. They connect me directly with who I need to talk to in a way that I can get off and with a resolution very quickly get back to my day, right? And those are the companies that are using technology in a seamless way where it's not front and center. You don't always have to know about it, but they're doing it behind the scenes. And I don't know for a fact, because I don't have any inside information on USAA, but I could bet they probably save between 5 to 20% of their operating expense because they're using that smart technology to avoid all those manual things that other companies still do.
That's amazing. And, just pulling the lens back a little bit more, you mentioned earlier that part of the thing that makes many companies successful these days is once you get a customer, keeping that customer and keeping them for the long term. And I know that your system, helps with that. If I'm a client or potential client, Jerry, and I'm looking at Officium and I want to engage with you, do I get to select which one of the 4 technology platforms you offer for my business? Or do you recommend which one of the 4, or do I have to take all 4 of the platforms? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. So I think what you're calling platforms are our products that sit inside the ServiceStack platform. And so we do everything we do is pay as you go and is bespoke. So it can be fully customizable for the client. We have some clients that use all of them. We have some clients that use one of the products, or we have some clients that just use the TalentPlace network, which is just the resource part of the platform. So it really depends on what you need as a client, because again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier on the call. People do business with people. So the whole purpose why we created Officium was to serve and to help, which is what it means in Latin, to serve and help. And so as long as we're helping you, then we're gonna feel like we have purpose. If we're not here to sell things that people don't need, we're not here to sell things that people don't want. We're here to say, hey, you've got an opportunity, you need some help. We've got the capability, either in product, people, or technology. If you're interested, we're happy to help you.
I love that. That is a great approach. And you combine that to serve and to help with hiring the right people with the right empathy. And you can see that is a recipe for great success. And Jerry, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the series today. I've wanted to have you on for a period of time because I had some very specific questions about not only Officium, but sort of how AI is working in the sort of best-in-class sales space. And I did get some of those answers, and I find it very fascinating. I hope we can get you on the show again, because this could go on for hours and hours. This is so fascinating, and what you're doing at Officium is just fantastic and right on target. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Andy. In the future, at the right time, let's definitely connect. Love to kind of continue to pick your brain too. It sounds like you've got a lot of great ideas and thoughts for the future. Thanks for the time, man.
Awesome. Thank you.